you guys? Welcome back to Lily Reads. In today's video, we are going to be talking about the first 3 months of my reading year. I like to break the reading year up really into seasons, but you could put them into quarters, and I like to count this as the end of winter. This is my end of winter reading. Now we are going into spring and doing my spring reads for 3 months, but this is my end of winter reading. How has my reading year been so far? I am going to go ahead and claim it. I think this might be my best reading year yet, and this is how I know. Whenever I read a book and a book is not good, I'm actually shocked by it. I'm shocked when I do not enjoy a book, and that has not been how it was. It has not been that way for the past few years. Usually I pick up a book and it's gonna be hit or miss. I'm not sure if I'm gonna like it. I am surprised when I read a book and do not enjoy it. That's how I know my reading year has been going well. So we're just gonna get on into it. Some things I'm gonna talk about with you guys today are my 5-star reads of the year, the books I like the least, some DNFs. But first things first, I want to talk about 4 books that I read at the end of December. They are right here. So when I am doing my end of the year, stuff, best, worst, disappointing, surprising, there are always about 4 to 7 books that don't really get included in those videos because I'm reading them in the moment. There's rarely a time where I go a week, definitely not 2 weeks without reading a book. I read about 3, 4, 5, 6 books a week. Therefore, I'm always going to be reading a book even if I'm working on end of the year stuff. So there's always about 4, 5, 6 books that I want to come and tell you guys about, but there's never a place to put it. It can't go in my January wrap up because I didn't read it in January. It can't go on my December wrap up because I don't do December wrap ups because I've already clogged your feed with my best and worst books of the year. So I never even do a December wrap up. And these books kind of get forgotten, but I don't want to forget about them because I have 4 books to show you that I really, really enjoyed and I think you should read. So let's start by discussing Crossroads by Jonathan Franzen. This book is about a family that is head of a church. It's about a guy whose family is he's head of a church. He has a family and they do this after church program called Crossroads, and you're basically following this family through all of their issues and stuff. I had no clue what this book was about, and seeing a guy on the cover with the guitar, baby, I thought they was going to be listening to music. I never really fully read the synopsis. You kind of just get wrapped up in the melodrama of this family, and I thought it was really, really well done. So this is a book that I never really discussed on this channel, but I read it and I really enjoyed it. The next book that I read and enjoyed is Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver? Anyway, this book won the Pulitzer last year for fiction. It was an Oprah's book club pick, and I really enjoyed this book. In this book, we are following a boy named Demon Copperhead as he deals with being poor in America and him trying to find his way out of poverty, make something of himself when kind of everyone has told him he was never going to be anything. This book is so well written. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. I will say this book didn't reach 5-star for me like it did for other people because I do think eventually it kind of becomes redundant and you kind of expect the beats. You've been following the book in this character for so long, you expect bad stuff to happen to him because bad stuff just keeps happening to him. So it's kind of eventually you kind of become exhausted with its premise. But I really enjoyed the writing of this book. Where I think this book lacks in plot, it makes up with the writing. There are so many quotes in this book. It is so brilliant, and yeah, really good book. Really good book. I enjoyed it, but I never talked about it. And I want to tell you, I actually read this book last year in December, and I enjoyed it. The next book that I read at the end of December and really enjoyed was Don't Cry for Me by Daniel Black. In this book, we are reading a letter from a man who is dying, and he is talking about his upbringing and everything that happened to him in his life. I thought this was so damn good. What I enjoyed about this book is this was a book that talked about the upbringing of Black people in a specific time that we don't really get books about. There was something so mundane about the stories that this guy was telling in this that were so real. Like, if you go talk to Black people in like the middle of South Carolina, the middle of Louisiana, the middle of Texas, like Black people who have just been in a specific place for a really long time, like your grandma, your great grandma, your grandma before that all lived in this one same town, city, or state. They have such these rich stories that aren't really stories that make like long drawn out, narratives, but like they're small stories, but they say so much. That's what this book was able to capture. And I just thought this book was really brilliant. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. This was the last book that I read in December. Like, I read this on New Year's Eve and really, really enjoyed it. The last book, and if I read this book before I made my end of the year videos, this book would have been in my best books of 2023. In Memoriam by Alice Wynn. I loved everything about this book. In short, this book is about 2 gay men who go off to war and during World War I, and a bunch of bullshit is happening. Everybody around them is dying, and they are just trying to be in love and happy. I enjoyed everything about this book. This book was sad, but it was also triumphant. It was so well written. There's a quote that stays with me. One of the guys writes poetry, and he lost all of his poetry books. I think someone set them on fire or threw them away or something. And so he's like, I'm never going to write poetry again. Like, they ruined me. And the other guy writes a note to him, and he's just like, you'll write poetry again because you are the poetry. Oh my gosh, it's brilliant. There's so many good quotes in this. I love this book. 5 out of 5 stars. One of my favorite books of last year. Might be one of my favorite books of all time. I really enjoyed this and did not expect to enjoy this. So anyways, those are like honorable mentions that should have been at the end of last year that I read that I didn't get to talk about. Now we gotta talk about some DNFs. Luckily for me, I don't know if it's a luckily thing, but I only DNF'd 2 books this year, and it is 80 Days to Elsewhere and The Guy on the Right. Since DNFing these 2 books, I have not tried to come back to these books. I think these are firm DNFs. I will be unhauling them. These are the 2 books that I DNF'd this year. Now we gotta talk about my stacks. So I decided to take all the books off of my bookshelf and pretty much put them in the order of which I enjoyed them. So these are the books that I did not really enjoy at all. These are the books that I thought were fine. These are the books that I thought were good. And these are the books that I thought were great. Those are my ranking. So I'm going to go through and tell you guys my least favorite books of the year. Then I'm going to tell you my favorite books of the year. And then I'm going to let you guys go. I am not keeping you here long, and that's what we'll do. Okay, so I'm just going to go and tell you my 1 and 2 stars, and I consider my 1 and 2 stars my least favorite books of the year. These are the only books that I read this year besides my DNFs that just did not work for me this year, and everything else worked for me in some way. And the fact that all I have is this stack, by the way, I believe I have read 50 books this year already. I think I've read 50 books this year. So the fact that only about 10, maybe 12 books didn't work and the rest did work, I think we are doing good. So the first book that did not work for me was Fire Rush. Did not work for me. Haven't wanted to go back to this book. Haven't thought about this book. Did not work. The next book that I genuinely did not like, this book is probably going to show up in my worst books of the year. Nothing Special by Nicole Flattery. Did not enjoy it. Another book that just had a lot going into it because it was Zadie Smith, but I just didn't enjoy it. I did not enjoy my reading experience is NW by Zadie Smith. That one did not work for me. Another book that did not work for me and definitely will be getting unhauled. It was already in my unhaul closet. I had to go get it. Redwood and Wildfire by Andrea Hairston. Did not enjoy this one. Another book that was already in my unhaul closet, The Accidental Pinup by Daniel Jackson. This is just not a good book, and I did not enjoy it. One of my worst books of the year. Another book that's one of my worst books of the year and probably will show up in my worst books of the year video is Taj McCoy, Savvy Sheldon Feels Good as Hell. Did not enjoy much of anything about this book. Another book that I did not enjoy and probably will show up in my worst books of the year, and it's going to get unhauled, is A Low Country Bride by her name's in cursive. Preslasa Williams. I butchered that and I'm sorry, but this one did not work for me. Next one is a thriller. Lisa Jewell, None of This Is True. This book is so loved by people, and maybe if people didn't love this book so deeply, I wouldn't be so hard on this book, but I just don't understand why people deeply like this book. I do not believe this book is good. I don't think there's anything good about it, honestly, and I just don't see how this book is so loved. This was already in my unhauled closet. I don't want to see this book again. No. Next book I did not enjoy is Love is a Revolution by Renee Watson. I wanted to like this book. I just simply didn't. Another book that I did not enjoy is Permanent Record by something Cho. What's her name? I don't know. But yeah, I did not enjoy this book. And last book of this video that I did not enjoy is Jessica Knowles' Bright Young Women. Wasn't for me. Even though, look, it's such my brand. Look at the pink and yellow. My brand, but did not enjoy this book. And that's pretty much all the books that I did not enjoy this year so far. And if in the next 3 months, that's all we got is about 12 books I didn't like, that is fine. I will take it because all of these books I did enjoy. Now let's get into my 5 stars. I'm not saying 4 stars, my 5 stars. I have an entire stack of 5-star reads. This is something that has never happened to me. In January, February, March, having an entire stack of 5 stars, oh, we are eating good, okay? Let's get into them. Okay, so far, my favorite books of the year are Echo Brown, Black Girl Unlimited. Obviously gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. I adored this book. I adored everything about this book. Go pick it up. Everything I'm showing you, please go pick up. Please go read. It will be well worth it. The next book that I love, one of my favorite reading experiences of the year, is Full Disclosure by Cameron Garrett. Loved it. Excellent. No notes. The next book that I really enjoyed, 5 out of 5 stars, is Not So Pure and Simple by Lamar Gills. Really enjoyed this book. We don't really get a lot of books like this, and I just think it hit it out of the park. The next book, which is like, there's always like a chaotic book that just like, it's for me. Like, I feel like a lot of other people will not like it, but it was for me. I read it in the right time. That is White Coat Diaries by Maddie Sanaa. I love this book so much. 5 out of 5 stars. And it's so funny because I thought about unhauling this book many times. But the fact that I finally read and got to it and really liked it, loved it. The next one, Toni Morrison has entered Toni Morrison is always in the building. I feel like every time I sit down to do one of these books, Toni Morrison is always in the goddamn building. Toni Morrison with Beloved. Right here, 5 out of 5 stars. Thought it was so damn brilliant. So good. It's like a haunting story. Like, Toni Morrison does horror so well, and this is just one of the examples. So good. The next book, and I cannot wait to read the sequel of this book, is Rachel Kane's Stillhouse Lake. Oh yeah, 5 out of 5 stars. I did a whole vlog that was a complete spoiler of this entire book. I really enjoyed this book. The next thing we have is a book called Family Meal by Brian Washington. Go pick this book up. This book is very experimental, and I would say in tone and narrative and structure, and I thought it was really well done. I enjoyed it. The next book is The Catch by Alison Fairbrother. I keep thinking about this book. I don't know why I keep thinking about this book, but I do. And I keep referencing this book. And that's why I've moved it up to 100% a 5-star read. I enjoyed The Catch. Go read The Catch. The next book we have is Homegoing by Yagayasi. I think this is the most inspired book that I read. This author had something it wanted to do, and they did it, and it was brilliant. Love this book. 5 out of 5 stars. The funniest book that I read this year is Jamila Green Ruins Everything by Zaraka Nawat. I really enjoyed the fuck out of this book. This book was so good, so brilliant, so well done, had some interesting things to say. go pick this book up. It's a lot of fun. The next book is a memoir, and it is All the Women in My Brain and Other Concerns by Betty Gilpin. For me to put a memoir here from someone who I really do not know, you know I had to really enjoy it, and I really enjoyed this. More people should pick this up. This is one of the books that I like, that I just genuinely think the right audience has not found this book. I think this book could appeal to a lot of people. A lot of people just have not gotten their hands on it. The next book that I loved was Thin Girls by Diana Clark. 5 out of 5 stars. One of the books I read really early this year. Loved it. Had so many interesting things to say. So many quotes that I thought were brilliant. Yeah. And the last book that I gave 5 out of 5 stars to is If I Had Your Face by Frances Cha. I need to pick up more Frances Cha. Does Frances Cha have other books? I don't know, but this book is really, really good, and I loved it. So anyways, those are my best books of the year. We'll see what makes the cut when we do another season, when we wrap up in 3 more months. Let's see, like, do I like those new books better than I like these books? And then at the end of the year, we'll see what books make the top 10. There's a few that I know are probably going to make the top 10, but we'll find out. And then in the hate, I wouldn't say all the books that I disliked these past 3 months are going to make my most hated list. I cannot say that because I don't passionately hate a lot of those books. Just didn't work. And then these are my 3 stars and these are my 4 stars. I am very good with these 4-star. I don't think any of these 4 stars should move to 3, and I don't think any of them should move to 5. I think they are good at 4 stars. Same thing with the 3s. So anyways, that is my winter wrap up. I had to come back, you guys, because I totally forgot I ran a book club. I forgot I ran a book club. We've read 3 books for the book club, and I have to come and talk to you guys about them because one of the books is quite easily the worst book I read this year, I believe. So in January, we read an anthology, Even If the Sky is Falling. This has several authors like Lane Clark, Farrah Heron, Taj McCoy, Sharice Reed, Sarah Smith, and Denise Williams. I like some of these books. I didn't like, some of these stories. I didn't like some of the other ones. It was fine. Altogether, I think it came out to a 3-star. And so that was that on that. I tried to begin the year with an anthology if I can find one. In February, we read the worst book I've ever read in my life, and it is Single Dad's Club by Teresa Bahari. I think, I think this book was written with AI. So much of this book just doesn't make sense. Like, the wording is choppy, or characters will say things that, like, don't make sense in context. And so I don't know what was happening with this book. For such a great cover, it just wasn't good at all. I give this book 1 out of 5 stars. Not very good. And I really liked it because this book had like a strangers to lovers, and we don't really get strangers to lovers a lot in romance books. I don't know why we just really don't. So a lot of times people know each other through like work, or like they're going to like be around each other for some reason, and that's how they're strangers. I want books where it's just like, I've never seen this person, I'll never see this person again if I don't strike up a conversation. And so this had kind of that setup, but like it crashed and burned. But the last book we read, which was in March, is A Love Song for Ricky Wilde by Tia Williams. I thought this book was ambitious. It had a lot going on. In the end, I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Didn't hate it, didn't love it. It just is what it is. But I do think you should pick it up. A lot of people have liked this book. A lot of people have hated this book. This is one of those books like you might DNF if you don't really invest the time into it. But I thought it was perfectly good. 3.5 out of 5 stars. I will read anything Tia Williams puts out. So I enjoyed it. So yeah, that is now the end of the video. Okay, I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.